We're going to take a look at some woke CEOs that are being exposed from PBS and NPR, which are both taxpayer funded, which means they're government funded, that got exposed by Elon. And they're going to ask them a few questions and watch them lie off their ass, and then we're going to take a look at another one later.
The United States is $36 trillion in debt. In fiscal year 2024, the government spent over $1.8 trillion more than it took in. And in fiscal year 2025, the interest on our debt is expected to exceed $1 trillion. As we continue investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, and we can look no further than the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the LGBTQ indoctrination of our children, the systematic racism narrative, and the support for censorship being pushed by the heads of NPR and PBS are just several of the many abuses of taxpayer dollars. And if you are one of the select few who might support such content, you can personally support and fund it with your own money through private donations, because the reality is the United States of America is broke and can't afford it. And after all,
the only way that they would get that private funding, though, is from an NGO that would just be a grant from the government. So, do you see how that works? That's how they get the money, from an NGO that's a grant, and then it comes from the government, which still comes out of the taxpayer. So, there's no way these people can function without our money.
PBS and NPR are already fundraising off of this committee hearing. The American people are closely following along today in this long-awaited hearing to hear the case for why Americans' hard-earned tax dollars should continue for public broadcasting. I think from what we have heard here today, the American people will not continue to allow such propaganda to be funded through the federal government with their hard-earned tax dollars. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting that we give over $500 million to no longer serves the public. It serves a narrow audience of wealthy, liberal elites who are out of touch with everyday Americans.
Libtards.
Not only have the times changed, and the American people who once needed these outlets can now access the news anywhere at any time, but the content that is being put out through these state-sponsored outlets is so radical, it is brainwashing the American people and, more significantly, American children with un-American, anti-family, pro-crime fake news. The American people do not support their taxpayer dollars going to NPR articles like, "How is sex determined? Scientists say it's complicated," which discusses how biological...
It's funny how they say trust the science, and then when the science doesn't agree with their narrative, they say, "Oh, you're just science denier. Oh wait, it doesn't agree with you anymore. Don't worry about the science. Science is always changing."
Sex is not limited to male or female. Or another article about how stories on crime are rife with misinformation and racism. Or about how birds and trees are racist. Over a 7-month period, the Media Research Center discovered the PBS NewsHour gave over 90% of the airtime to the left on gender ideology stories.
Jeez.
90%. As mentioned earlier, PBS was the outlet that featured the child predator drag queen on the education show for kids ages 3 to 8 years old. And to clarify the record, because our witness, Ms. Kerger,
we're paying for kids to be groomed.
Under oath and said it wasn't featured on PBS. This show was aired on PBS on April 1st, 2021, and
So the woke woman was already questioned, and she lied, and they had a problem with their TV, and they said, "Go get me a TV."
Take a look at this video right now. We're using a TV today because our audio system is having problems. Let's go ahead and watch this video.
So, get your singing voices ready. And we're going to start with our hips. The hips on the drag can go swish, swish, swish.
What?
Swish, swish, swish. The shoulders on the drag can go shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy.
Gross.
Shimmy, shimmy,
Ugh.
blah, blah,
Look at this. They were running this during the TV hour.
All through the town.
Disgusting.
So, get your singing voices.
The hips go swish, swish, swish. The shoulders go shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. That's repulsive. That's not what children ages 3 to 8 should ever be watching. A grown biological man
Groomer gooner.
as a woman. And by the way, Miss Kerger, that was aired on April 1st, 2021. And then something happened. It wasn't an accident. And it wasn't just for a brief time that it was up. It was aired April 1st, and then somehow it expired May 24th. Later on, it was taken down. I wonder why. Wonder why that was taken down. Another egregious example includes back in 2010, PBS's Travis Smiley stated that Christians blow up people every single day.
When does that
I haven't
happen?
seen that ever happen in my life.
Is he confusing us for Muslims?
Today, if you look on NPR's website, there is still zero mention of any negative coverage of any Democrat today. And trust us, there are more than plenty of examples to pull from. How about a member from this committee making fun of the governor of Texas for having a disability and living his life in a wheelchair, Miss Marr?
Crotch
From
it.
headlines to podcasts to documentaries to children's programming, NPR and PBS have all but abandoned their promise to deliver unbiased, nonpartisan, and fact-based reporting. The American people have woken up to this nonsense and blatant disregard for truth, and truth matters. And they will not put up with it any longer. Contrary to the beliefs of the head of NPR, Ms. Marr, truth is not subjective. It's actually very important. And there are not multiple truths. There's just one. For a civilization to exist, objective truth must exist. Here's how it works in America every single day, private businesses operate on their own without government funding. We believe that you all can hate us on your own dime.
Okay, so now we're going to take a look at this other lefty goofball that is insanely Trump deranged. She has white fragility, she has white guilt, and she's a white savior. She's the trifecta of all the lame, nerdy white people of an unhinged white liberal woman that's on probably a ton of SSRIs, man. She's probably on all kinds of alleged, mood stabilizers.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett, just leaving Oversight Doge Committee, and NPR and PBS were on the stand, and they needed to be. It's just unbelievable, the far left agenda that they're allowed to perpetrate on this country at taxpayers' expense. Could you imagine if Fox or Real America's Voice or anybody else, Newsmax, if they were allowed to receive federal money? I mean, there'd be an outcry, and there should be. And it's not a First Amendment issue. They can say whatever the heck they want. Just the American taxpayer shouldn't have to pay a dadgum red cent to it. I hope we get the guts and start passing some things to start saving American taxpayers money. It's time. It really is. Thank y'all for.
Right here we have the woke white woman herself. Now, this is the lady she's now the CEO of NPR. I think she's only been there for a year, but they're going to go through some of her past statements, man. And this chick is unhinged, dude. She needs to lay off the SSRIs, allegedly.
You're a rabid progressive. And do you not think it's a problem that your political leanings make it seem to the American people that you're not biased and that you're not doing your job? Because you agree that your job is to have journalistic integrity, right?
Absolutely, but there is a strong firewall between the newsroom and anything that I
Let's
do.
talk about the newsroom. You have 87 registered Democrats, not a single Republican in your editor board. So, I mean, how does that work to
That's
give us
strange.
the perception that you're doing your job of actually delivering unbiased information.
Well, I would agree with you that that number is a concern if it is accurate. I do believe that we need to have journalists who represent the full breadth of the American society so that we can report well for all Americans.
Well, I think that you are failing. I realize you've only been there for a year, but I just
How can you do that when you have a completely biased staff?
think that while it is a small portion of your budget, you very much should expect to restructure your revenue streams, because I don't think that NPR is necessarily worth saving.
Former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time did not
Peabody
overlap.
Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of
Never?
political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Miss
They're laughing.
Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was
concerning.
award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0? And you're
Yeah,
not
you
biased?
do. Yeah,
I
you
think
do.
that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say
Stretching will not make you flexible, and it will not eliminate your recurring injuries. Stretching
Why is
will
she
relax
sitting
your
like
muscles
that?
and make you feel good in the moment.
NPR is not biased.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you
Look, people are allowed to change, but when you get a job as a CEO at a news place that gets government funding and you only have libtards working there, it doesn't, nobody's going to believe that you've had this miraculous change. Yeah, we don't believe that bullshit.
that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You
Don't know where
tweeted
statement
that in
comes from.
reference
Tweeted it,
to a
but you
book
don't believe
were
it.
reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day
tweets
off
right
to
there.
fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on
Idiot.
Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherent
Because you got to lay off the wine and benzos, dude. And falling asleep with your cat, dude. Chill, bro. Then you might be able to remember all your drunk tweets.
feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't. You
100%
tweeted
do.
something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white
She said it. She believes it. That just shows you right there. She believes that she is superior to black people. She thinks that white people as a whole are holding black people down. But yet, what has she done to uplift black people?
should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. Said it in January
Bro.
2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay. How much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, just for everybody else.
Yep,
I'm
not her.
not asking anyone
Seems
to pay
to be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe
to the
it's
full extent of the
morally
law.
wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, "It's hard to be mad about protests," in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was
What is this?
counterproductive.
What is this woke white woman babbling bullshit, dude?
Also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book.
So NPR, unfortunately, has lost much of the audience that they used to have, and now they have a very partisan audience because of this. Who do they bring in to fix it? They bring in Ms. Maher, who has a history of commentary of promoting Marxist ideology, including critical theory. Said we should not use the terms boy or girl, has called our president a deranged racist sociopath, and said that our reverence for the truth has become a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done. And one could look at that and think that maybe, in your view, promoting groupthink is more important than finding the truth. I thought we liked diversity of ideas, especially, and that as an online encyclopedia that you used to manage, activism was more important than accuracy. Now, I had an uncle who used to say that you should never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And while that was humorous when we were talking about weekend fishing expeditions, when we're talking about news and information and encyclopedias and things that are of national importance, I find that very troubling. Now you are here managing NPR, which is in part federally funded. Can we expect that you will bring the same lack of reverence for truth to your management of NPR?
Thank you, Congressman. First of all, I do want to say that NPR acknowledges that we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively and sooner. Our current editorial leadership.
In Wuhan?
We recognize that we were reporting at the time, but we acknowledge that the new CIA evidence is worthy of coverage and have covered it.
What have you done to clean up the bias before? You mentioned I wasn't there for that. What are you doing to clean up and make sure that we have
Absolutely. Thank you,
unbiased?
Congressman. As I mentioned, I came in May. Mr. Berliner published his story 2 weeks into my tenure regarding stories that had happened prior. I wish that I had had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Berliner. I would have loved to have had him engage and come back to us with some suggestions as to what we could do editorially in order to address what he perceived as bias.
Now you've had a long history, including the thing that I mentioned about lack of reverence for truth. And how reverence for truth, you've even talked about the First Amendment kind of getting in the way of what you wanted to get done. And then you're wanting us to believe that NPR is now taking this non-biased approach. I mean, where was the come to Jesus moment for you, I guess, that has turned you around and that we can trust the American taxpayer dollars with your leadership of NPR?
I so appreciate the opportunity to perhaps clarify some things. My talk about truth was really referencing the way that people use truth to refer to belief as opposed to facts. And my encouragement was that we focus on
You don't
facts.
report.
With regards to the First Amendment.
That's not what your comment said. Your comment said that truth was getting in the way of getting things done and that you were prioritizing what you wanted to get done over truth. And that's really unfortunate. I want to go to a different context because you're allowed to have your political...
You do not believe in facts, woman. You believe in covering stories up.
Opinion, any news organization should be going after the truth. That's what we want and expect out of news organizations. But certainly a media platform can have whatever opinion it wants in a free society. The question before us today as a committee is whether or not the taxpayers should be forced to pay for this kind of thing. Mr. Gonzalez, I wanted to get your take on this about why the corporate public broadcasting is it still relevant today? I mean, we're in a different context than we were in the 60s where maybe not every home had a television. Now many of them have multiple televisions and
we're done funding this. We are so done funding this. good luck trying to keep these shitty ass businesses afloat without having our tax money subsidize you. You're gonna have to fire half of your woke ass staff and more than half of all those shitty ass woke editors that you have there. So good luck with that, man. You're not getting another dime from us. This is Menace, man. Let me know what you guys think. This is insane, dude. I'm out.